Now, US Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to the Philippines. She has met with protests there. Dozens of activists held a rally near the presidential palace in Manila, saying they wanted the Philippines to be peaceful and remain independent of America's politics and influence. Police rushed to block the protesters from approaching a gate leading to the presidential palace.
We also are against the warmongering of the United States for the sake of asserting its hegemony in this part of the world. We don't want our country to be used as the springboard or launching pad of the wars of the United States against China or any other country. We want a peaceful Philippines and a peaceful region.
Earlier in the day, Harris met with the Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The Vice President reaffirmed the United States' unwavering commitment to the Philippines and said that her visit is aimed at countering China and rebuilding ties with the Southeast Asian nation. Harris said Washington stands with Manila in defense of international rules and norms as they relate to the South China Sea. She also said an attack on the Philippine armed forces, whether on vessels or aircraft in the South China Sea, would invoke the U.S. mutual defense commitment that allows the United States to maintain a military presence but not a permanent one. Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. said that he does not see a future that excludes the United States. Harris's three-day visit to the Philippines also includes a stop on the islands of Palawan, situated on the very western edge of the South China Sea. The US Vice President will reiterate Washington's support for a 2016 International Tribunal ruling that dismissed Beijing's expansive claim in the disputed waterway. China had earlier claimed some territories in the waters off Palawan and much of the South China Sea, but that 2016 ruling by a tribunal in The Hague declared that the Chinese claims had no legal basis. Meanwhile, the Philippine Navy is accusing China of forcefully seizing a floating object that its troops had just recovered in the disputed South China Sea. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel on Sunday blocked a Filipino rubber boat that was carrying an unidentified floating object that looks similar to floating debris. It had been discovered by the Filipinos around 700 meters west of the island of Titu. For more on all of this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani joins us live from New York City today. Susan, give us a sense of what the Vice President's game plan is here. I mean, essentially, the United States is belatedly playing a game of catch-up with China for influence in the region, right?
Right, that's exactly what it is, and it has been really for the most part of the Biden administration since President Biden took office, and now Vice President Harris is really tasked with saying to regional countries and now the Philippines that the United States is essentially a better partner than China when it comes to economic relations, when it comes to regional ties, and when it comes to defense relations as well, economic stability. And they want to basically move away from China's sphere of influence and China's push for influence. And also, you know, Vice President's trip comes just shortly after President Biden was there for a week-long trip, first to Cambodia and then to Bali, Indonesia, really trying to assert America's leadership. But the problem is regional countries are weary of how much commitment the United States really has towards the region. While it's gotten better in recent years, you know, it's yet to be seen whether or not, first of all, this Indo-Pacific economic framework is really all it's cracked up to be on the one hand, and second of all, whether or not the United States can really convince regional countries that it's here to stay, as Vice President Harris was trying to say during that APEC meeting before meeting with the leaders of Philippines and Thailand.
Lots more focus on the region to come. Of course, the United States announcing that next year's APEC summit will be hosted in the city of San Francisco. Susan Tehrani, WION's correspondent in New York City. Thanks very much indeed for that today.